You know, it wasn't too long ago. Arsenal was locked in a top 4 race towards the end of the last season. Even Chelsea's 3rd place looked accessible at one point after Arsenal won 4-2 away at Chelsea. Times were good, and the Champions League dream was just within the reach. I gotta say, it's been a long time since we've seen Arsenal in the Champions League, and that was under the great Arsene Wenger. Yep, that's a while ago. And now, they were closer than ever. All they had to do was to hold off Tottenham on matchday 36. But Tottenham and Conte had different plans and literally ran them over in a 3-0 victory. With their destiny still in their hands and just 2 more games to go, Arsenal were still in top 4. But they would lose away to Newcastle, and with that, the 4th spot to Tottenham. But there was still hope. After all, if Arsenal won their last game against Everton and Tottenham lost their final game, they could still take it back. And Arsenal started brilliantly. Matter of fact, they beat Everton 5-1 at the Emirates. With one eye on the Tottenham result, Arsenal was hoping that the might of Norwich would pull off a miracle against the Spurs. And yeah, Norwich lost 5-0 against Tottenham. I guess there was a reason it was called a miracle.
Oh shit, here we go again.
That being said, it was a positive season for Arsenal, and in particular, Mikel Arteta. I can talk about Arsenal all day, but at the end of the day, I'm a Milan fan. What do I know about Arsenal? So I thought I'd bring someone who knows far more than I do about Arsenal. And who better than an aspiring journalist who's been a lifelong Arsenal fan? I'm gonna leave his LinkedIn in the description below. Archie and I are gonna talk everything Arsenal, from last season's failure of making it to top 4, the transfer window that they just had, the project of Mikel Arteta, and what does success mean for Arsenal this season. It's been a while since Arsenal made a genuine attempt at top 4, and with a young spine, the project of Arsenal is headed towards better days. But we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Arsenal was in pole position for top 4 until they just collapsed. So the question is, should we consider Arsenal's last season a failure or just a step in the right direction?
Well, considering after 3 games, Arsenal had conceded 9 goals and scored none, to finish in 5th place I think was a huge achievement personally. I mean, we have the youngest average squad age at 25.2 and the next youngest being Brentford at 26.2. So the progression of the team throughout the season was great, I think. Whilst performances in the FA Cup and the League Cup were considered weak, I believed Arteta used this season to really establish this Arsenal team in the Premier League. I really think the addition of Odegaard for just 31 million should be considered an absolute steal, considering he's now club captain and is the focal point for our play. This upcoming season has been centred around upgrading the squad to go to the next level. So really, considering we were the youngest squad, we started off pretty awfully and we didn't have Europe to play in. I think this season was a real success, personally.
Despite finishing outside of top 4, there's been plenty of positives from the growth of a young team. But on the other hand, you can't help but feel like they've missed a massive opportunity to capitalize, especially when the rivals were going through their own set of problems. So the question is, where did it all fall apart? How did Arsenal's top 4 journey go off the rails?
Yeah, of course, we were in the top 4 position for a long time, and a lot of the guys in the media said that we were a shoo-in, and to give away top 4 was, you know, a big disaster for the club. But sadly, with a young squad, I think comes inexperience. I mean, crucial players such as Thomas Partey and Takahiro Tomiyasu had their injury troubles throughout the season. And then when Kieran Tierney got injured after playing in the Scotland qualifiers, the side got considerably weaker. I mean, that 3-0 loss to Crystal Palace, followed by losses to Brighton and Southampton, really established that, to me, this Arsenal team was not ready for the Champions League. That's why I wasn't completely devastated when we didn't get in that top 4. I really felt if this squad deserved and were ready to be in Europe, then we would be. So, as we were not playing in Europe, we could get away with having a really thin squad, but injuries to key players really saw the squad fall apart. You know, of course, Nuno Tavares is extremely raw, and in my opinion, Cedric is not really at the level of a Champions League team. So having them for the last sort of part of the season really saw our results start to dip, and that really was the reason we didn't get in top 4.
Surely with certain additions, Arsenal could get closer to making it to top 4, right? Well, at the time of making this video, they signed Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko from Man City and Viera, not Patrick obviously. And with William Saliba coming back from a successful loan spell, you could argue that Arsenal won the transfer window. But the question is, are they good enough for Arsenal to push forward and finally break the top 4? Well, to answer that, we need to look into what the other clubs are going through. I think it's safe to say that 1 and 2 go to City and Liverpool. Well, maybe not necessarily in that order, but they seem to be miles ahead of the rest, at least on paper. Then we have Chelsea, who are going through their biggest transition in the recent era. And then there's Manchester United, another club in transition, who are trying to recover from the abysmal season that they just had. We then got Tottenham, who are probably the most stable compared to the previous 2 clubs. That being said, this season, they have to commit to the pressures of the Champions League. And don't get me wrong, I'm a massive fan of Antonio Conte, but history teaches us that anytime he's done his best, it was without European football. Juventus in 2012, Chelsea in 2017, and Inter in 2021. What's the common denominator here, you ask? Well, they either had no European football at all, or in Inter's case, were completely eliminated from European football by December. I honestly have doubts on whether Tottenham can genuinely sustain the Conte football with the added European commitments this season. And then you've got Arsenal, a young team with a settled squad who have done brilliantly well in the summer window. So how would you rate Arsenal's chances of making top 4, or maybe even potential dark horses for a title challenge?
Yeah, I mean, we've improved a lot this summer. I think you can tell, but so has every other team. You know, there's been a lot of investment around the league through Tottenham, through Chelsea, Man City and Liverpool have both got new strikers as well. But I really think the difference maker for Arsenal will be the returning William Saliba. I really think he adds a dynamic that Arsenal haven't had before, and he really excelled into a top player in his recent loan in Marseille. I mean, just from the stats, he had the most touches, he had the most possessions won in the defensive third, and he actually set the record for the most passes completed ever in Ligue 1. So his composure on the ball allows Gabriel to concentrate on defending, while Saliba can be more of the ball-playing centre-back. And it's really interesting, actually, because now we can put Ben White at right-back, as on the ball, Zinchenko and White can push up next to Partey, while Xhaka and Odegaard also move ahead to make more of a 2-3-5. And Jesus is a huge improvement on the team as well, as he provides the energy and movement that Lacazette just couldn't.
I think it's safe to conclude that Arsenal have done well to improve themselves from last season, at least on paper. A season during which they put themselves in prime position to qualify for the Champions League. And it did fall away from what we saw last season. When the going got tough, when it came to those gateway moments, Arsenal just fell apart. At least from outside looking in, there was no way I could predict Arsenal. They could win away at Chelsea, but then lose 3-0 at Palace. So as much as we can take positives out of Arsenal's season, clearly there are issues to work on. But the question is, have Arsenal done enough to solve their issues with this transfer window?
Yeah, I think from an Arsenal perspective, the recruitment has been very strong since the backroom staff has been more unified. I mean, Edu and Arteta have created a very strong partnership together. And it seems that Stan Kroenke listened to the protests of the fans and has moved away from the traditional American business model where clubs are self-sustaining, as a lot of them are in America, and understands more that money needs to be spent in this sport, really to elevate your position. So adding his son Josh Kroenke to the board of directors was a really big step for me. He's really impressed me with his more hands-on approach, and there's been a clear roadmap at Arsenal. I mean, last summer, the direction was to build a young core that can be moulded to Arteta's mindset and can maintain the Arsenal culture for years to come. Whereas this summer, the idea was to reinforce the team with more established talent with an already winning mindset. I mean, Jesus and Zinchenko are already well known by Arteta, and both bring an immediate upgrade to the starting 11. And also Fabio Viera, more on the other hand, is a bit more of an unknown quantity for Arsenal fans. I mean, the transfer really came out of the blue. Nobody really knew him or what to expect from him. But his potential, I think, at the number 8 position should intrigue fans greatly, as he works very well in the half spaces. And sort of as Xhaka gets, of course, a bit older and he gets phased out the side, he should really be who we're looking for the future, I think.
Well, as you can see, Archie is quite optimistic about Arsenal's chances of making it to the promised land. And to be honest with you all, I kinda agree with Archie here. I'm actually optimistic about Arsenal's chances of top 4, and I say that as a normally pessimistic football fan. After all, Arsenal have a Mohammed and a Jesus in their squad, so even God must be on their side, right? In all seriousness, the project of Arsenal reminds me of the project that my Milan started 3 seasons ago, building a nucleus of young players that can grow together and be molded to the values of the club both on and off the pitch. A lot of people think that this is a real crunch time for Arsenal in terms of where this project is actually going. So the question is, do you think that this is the make or break it moment for the Mikel Arteta project? Do you think that this is the season that we're gonna have that final judgment?
Personally, from my opinion, no. I don't think it's a make it or break it moment for Arteta. I mean, you can really see that Arteta has complete backing from not only the players, really from the fans and the owners as well, that previous manager Emery simply didn't get. I mean, Arteta's changed a lot about the club since he's been here. I mean, from the Emery era, the only players left are El Neni, Holding and Xhaka. I mean, to get rid of that many players in this space of time is a huge turnaround in only 3 years. And to really reset a club's culture, I mean, the owners understand that it's going to take years. I mean, you look at Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, and he's taken a huge amount of investment and 7 years to get his brilliant Liverpool team to where it is now. I mean, Arteta's clearly a manager for the future, and I really hope Arsenal will maintain that. I mean, what do you think from an outside perspective? Do you think Arteta is he a good manager? I might be sort of a bit blind because I really think he's the one to take us forward, but maybe others don't see it that way.
When I see all these Arteta out shouts, I would say, I'm like, and then bring who? Like, who else would you bring that fits in with the culture of Arsenal and can take this project forward? Like, who's the guy that wouldn't just tear everything apart and start from zero? For me personally, Arsenal was a club that had lack of leadership. It felt like you could get away with mediocrity, or at least what you guys were calling mediocrity. Like, for me, top 4 was brilliant. For me as a Milan fan at the time, that was my dream. I gotta say, it's quite hard not to be impressed with Arsenal's transfer window and their preseason games so far. And at the time of making this video, Arsenal beat Crystal Palace 2-0. Honestly, that's a pretty good start. And I know we can only take the start of the season with a grain of salt, but the signs are positive so far. As a neutral, I'm actually looking forward to see how this Arsenal project develops.
I think it's very rare to find. Obviously, Arteta was our captain previously. He loves the club. We've also got Jack Wilshere as one of our youth coaches. We've got Per Mertesacker as head of the academy. And I think it's a very rare situation to find so many Arsenal-influenced people running the club. And, I just don't think you're going to find that anywhere else, really. And as you said, if we're going to get someone else in, who else are you going to get in? Who sort of loves the club, who really wants to invest themselves in the club? I think it's a rare situation and something we should really cherish. So I've been Arteta in since the start, really. Having
said all that, what is success next season for Arsenal?
I think success really has got to be putting a stamp on the league, coming out the season early and getting results, fortifying yourself in the top 4 early on. I think even if it's only the first game of the season, we hadn't beaten Crystal Palace in 9 games. So to get the away win 2-0 on the first game of the season really puts you in good steadings for the weeks ahead. So I really think it's getting that top 4. It's getting rid of a few more of the deadwood in the club, potentially Hector Bellerin, who wants to leave, Ainsley Maitland-Niles wants to leave, potentially what we'll see with Nicolas Pepe, whether he, of course our record signing, whether he stays and realises his potential or potentially moves on. But it's really getting that top 4 and going far in the Europa League, I think, has got to be the minimum for Arteta this season.
Let me just say that I'm cautiously optimistic about Arsenal's season. cautiously being the key word. That being said, I do have a concern when it comes to Arsenal this season. I think there's a clear lack of depth on the bench, especially when it comes to a season with 5 substitutions. Having watched the rest of the Europe using the 5 subs rule in the past 2 seasons, I'll tell you one thing. You're gonna see a lot of substitutions in minute 50 or 55. Hell, even double substitutions at a time to switch things up. There's gonna be a lot of dependency on the depth of your squad. Can Mikel Arteta afford to depend on his substitution bench in a long, congested season when his rival coaches are fairly better equipped with depth, especially with European football on Thursdays and a World Cup mid-season? Honestly, as an outsider looking in, that remains my only worry for Arsenal in what seems to be a pretty settled team. Dealing with these issues will be an interesting test for Mikel Arteta this season. I want to thank Archie Veal for his time and his immense wealth of knowledge on Arsenal, and I'm really looking forward to having him again on this channel in the future. Only time will tell whether Arsenal will take their next great leap forward or suffer another setback to their recovery back to the top.